Hey, everybody. Welcome to Healed Whole Call podcast. Of course, I'm Wendy Melrose, founder of Resilience Press, where we believe God redeems our stories and uses them to bring healing and purpose to others. This is where we can have real conversations about healing, resilience, faith, and calling that come from life's hardest seasons. And if you're joining us live today, say hello in the comments and where you're watching from. And today I'm honored to welcome Tabitha Sanchez. She is a real estate professional and certified grief coach who helps women navigate some of life's hardest lessons and transitions. After experiencing profound personal loss herself, she now combines practical guidance with deep compassion to help women heal, protect their futures, and step into the new chapters with confidence. She's building a coaching and community platform focused on grief, healing, and empowered new beginnings. So, hey, Tabitha.
Hi.
So, you're so welcome. Share with the world where you're from, or where you're like streaming from.
I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Ah, awesome. What's funny? That's why I asked her, like, hey, what's on the west side of New Mexico? Albuquerque? She says, yeah, 1 minute where she lives. It's so funny. Like, I knew the New Mexico part. So if I'm really looking forward to the conversation because grief is something so many people carry quietly without moving forward. And we've even experienced that in our personal lives right now with the passing of my niece a month ago. And I tell people, like, people are like, oh, how are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm experiencing the joy of the Lord while managing grief at the same time. And two can exist in the same space. But you have your moments where, reality, like you're quiet for a minute and reality hits it and it's like a truck hits you. But I'm looking forward to hearing like what you've learned. So my first question for you is, when someone is walking through deep loss, what is something you wish more people understood about the grief journey?
Oh gosh, that it's not linear. I think so many people, they hear about the, 5 stages of grief, and people tend to think that that there really are only 5 stages of grief, and that you go through a process, and that when you're done with each of these stages, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it just doesn't work that way. I have days where I can be angry, and then an hour later I'm sobbing, and then an hour later I'm laughing. So, I roller coaster through the grief process daily, and
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes certain ones last a little longer.
Yeah. Well, and I think we would love it to be linear because it would be easier.
Oh, yeah. It would be a lot easier if we could be like, "Okay, I'm gonna feel this way for this much time, and then this way for this much time, and once I hit this plateau, I'm done." Like,
Mm-hmm.
that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
If we had a guide.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you find, and I'm sure this is true, but I'm just going to ask the question, depending upon, you know, how old someone was or what happened when they passed or how it passed, was it sudden, was it expected? I mean, do you find there's so many variables on what happens to when someone passes away, or whatever it is that happens that causes a grief trauma, right? Do you find that it's normal to have all those different variables, or is grief very much the same for everybody regardless? Even though I know that's not true.
Oh gosh, it's so different for everybody, and everybody handles it differently. Um, I see some people that just hold it in, and they don't feel their feelings, and I think that could really be detrimental. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think the only way through grief is through grief.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some people try to sideline it, like they try to go around it and go under it and go over it, and unfortunately, you gotta go straight through it, and you just have to feel the feelings as much as it sucks. I have days where I have a hard time getting myself out of bed, and I had one day I quite literally I took a break one day, thought I need to just rest, and then the next day, I was like, I don't really feel like getting up today either." And then so that was Friday, Saturday, and then it led into Sunday. And by the time I hit Sunday, I was like, I just don't want to do it. And I was just kind of giving up in that moment. And Monday came along, and I thought, oh my gosh, you're still in bed. And I couldn't get myself out that morning. And And I kind of had to slap myself around a little bit. And I literally got up to go to the bathroom. I walked back and I looked at my bed and I'm like ready to lay right back down in it. And I just yanked all my sheets off my bed and I put them in the washer. And it was a weird moment, but it was a moment where I was like, if I don't have any sheets or blankets on my bed, I'm not getting back in. So I kind of gave myself no choice but to just get through it, just push through it and not hide anymore. And we have those moments though.
Right, right. That's so awesome. And I'd love to go a little bit deeper and ask a couple, like about three questions so that listeners can understand the journey behind who you are. So, if someone were to meet you today, what are the 2 to 3 moments that really shaped the journey that brought you here and to be a grief? Um, I don't know if you call it therapist or guide or whatever you call it.
Kind of, I'd say more of a guide.
Yeah.
I would say so back in 2012, I got divorced. I was in a very toxic relationship, and I had been married for quite a while, and that was a big moment in my life and a big change in my life. And then January of 2025, I lost the love of my life, who we weren't legally married. And so that put a whole lot of issues aside from just the loss of losing him. So
Mhm.
I think when I lost him, quite literally my whole entire life changed.
Mm. Um, where did you feel like God met you in that space? Because, I mean, all of a sudden you go from having this person in your life to not having this person in your life. And I mean, what, other than putting your sheets in the washer so that you actually got up for the day, what was it that really helped start the healing process so you could function again?
Well, it was interesting because when I found out my husband had passed, well, I refer to him as my husband.
Fine.
When I found out he passed, I I got angry. I got angry at God.
Hmm.
I was, I at the moment it was like, why did you take him from me? And he was such a good man. And so it was one of those moments where you're like, there's so many awful people in this world. Why would you choose him?
Hmm.
And so I had a moment with him. I yelled at him. I argued with him. And then I found myself sitting, realizing that he's been the only one that's been there for me my entire life.
Hmm.
I grew up with no faith. Like we didn't go to church. My mom didn't talk about she didn't talk about God. In fact, I remember when I was younger, one of the things that she used to say is, well, if God existed, why would he do this and why would he do that? So that was really all I grew up with, was hearing that. So
Hmm.
as I was growing up, I kept finding these little pieces where I was like, felt like I was missing something. And I knew it had something to do with this connection that I was missing. So I would look into it all the time. I was meeting with new people and learning different things and asking questions, going to church, all of that. And so this, it was a moment where I was like, okay, you either get angry and you sit in this whole situation of just thinking God doesn't exist and why would he do this to you?
Hmm.
Or you just dig deep into this faith and try to understand this and try to find the connection. And that's what I did. I have some incredible friends and some incredible neighbors that kept reminding me about God's healing and all the things, and kept me in the Word. And so that's what I did. I would sit every single morning. I was reading scripture. And I still do. And I just keep my connection with Him, and I feel His presence. I had a moment, I got some energy work done, and it was early on in my grief, and I remember laying there with my eyes closed, and I remember right before she told me, she said, "Whatever you do, when we sit down and we do this session, I want you to open your hands and give it to God." And I thought, "All right, but we'll see how this works." And I remember laying there with my eyes closed, and I did. I said, "God, I'm done. I can't do this alone." And I gave it all to him, and I could feel him. I could see him. I had a whole conversation with him in this moment, and it was pretty amazing. And my husband was kind of in the background right there with him. So it was pretty amazing.
That's so beautiful. And I know so often, one of the things at my niece's celebration of life, the minister had said that God doesn't take. We think he takes, but God doesn't take, he receives. The enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. The body fails, and then God receives.
Absolutely.
And like once that has been, like, I've been kind of meditating on that message now for a couple weeks since we had her celebration of life. And it puts everything in perspective. It doesn't mean that you still can't have your feelings or you're being mad or disappointed or whatever it is. God can handle all of it. It's just, eventually learning how to place the blame where blame is due. And that's not on God, it's on the enemy.
Absolutely. I definitely learned that over this past year, realizing, one of the things that was very profound that was brought to my attention as a reminder was that, God never promised us that we weren't going to have pain in this lifetime. And all he promised us is that he would forgive our sins. And that's what he's done. And so he died for our sins, and we were never promised we weren't going to feel pain. And unfortunately, this is just part of it.
Right. And he meets us in that. I mean, the Father God understands what it's like to lose someone so close to him, his son, right? And here we are in Holy Week, right? And we're reminded again of the sacrifice for us. But what's beautiful is that now all we have to do is receive it.
Right.
And God loves us more. He loved your husband more than you did.
Yep.
And he loves each and every one of you who are watching more than you could ever imagine. If you're just like, yeah, whatever. I mean, whatever. I mean, you whether you believe it to be true or not doesn't mean it's not true. Whether you accept it or love or receive what God has for you. But I would love to switch to the next question. So it's really not even been that long. It's been a little over a year and a few months since he has passed. And now you find yourself helping other people process their grief. One question, were you doing that before him?
No.
So it's only been recently. When did you know you were called to do this?
Oh my gosh. Early on, to be honest, I kept having I've always had this pull at my heart that there was something more for me, something else I was supposed to be doing, but I never really knew what it was. I've always felt like I needed to help people. But initially I started doing it in real estate because that's what I do. I do real estate. And so I thought, oh, I'm going to help realtors. I'm going to help new agents and do these things. And it never really felt right. And when he passed and I started going through a lot of really hard stuff, not only did I lose him and I was going through the grief of losing him, but suddenly, since we were not legally married, his kids had all the rights, and they owned my house. They owned all of everything that was on our property that we built together. They suddenly owned it. And it was really, really hard for me because greed and jealousy all came into factor. And I was suddenly living this life I never could have even imagined, in this fight or flight mode all the time. And immediately I thought, I never want anybody else to feel this way. And what can I do to help them? And so that was where it kind of started. And I just realized that I've learned a lot of things over this time. I mean, everybody keeps telling me most people would have folded a long time ago. And I just kept fighting and fighting and fighting because I was being treated horribly. And I had to sign a lease on my own home. And I had to pay rent on my own home. And so there was a lot of factors that went into things that just made it awful. And I felt like I had suddenly been separated from his entire family, who I thought they loved me. And I suddenly realized that I was not the person. They weren't the people I thought they were.
So, grief has a way of revealing all that, right?
Yes, it does. It definitely shows true colors. That's for sure.
So, um, now that you've been sharing this story out there, what challenges have you faced while sharing to help others? Like, your whole grief journey and how you're here to help others also experiencing deep grief.
Um, I think that people just have a really hard time again. They think that, there's some kind of magic pill that's going to take the grief away.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I've learned over this past a little over a year is that you have to be in it and you have to feel the feelings and allow yourself to just be in it, but you can't stay there. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the biggest things is, I have my moments and I have some really bad moments and, I cry probably once a day and sometimes it's harder than others. Sometimes certain things trigger it more than other things. But I've also acknowledged that I have to find a way out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes that's just giving a phone call to a friend and just having a conversation and going to coffee. Um,
Mm-hmm.
just getting out of myself, I guess you could say. And so I've learned that with a lot of people. A lot of people really struggle with that is we struggle with asking for help. We don't want to ask people for help. So if you know somebody that's grieving, just be that helping hand. Don't ask because unfortunately we don't want to be a burden on people either. And I
Right.
think that's a hard thing.
Well,
So
that's a good question to bring up. So, so often we've all noticed, um, with this journey, and it's deeply affecting my sister with the loss of her daughter, right? And it's been the amount of outpouring support that they've gotten, it has been amazing. But we all know that, now the celebration, it's been a month, celebration of life has passed, all the different things, you know, how can you encourage people to reach out to more than just, my sister, miss my sister. I mean, it affects the whole family, right? But some people, I think they think they're gonna bother
they
the
do.
people who are grieving. How can we change that in our society? What is it that we need to do to be like, hey, reaching out does not mean you're bothering. Reaching out means you showing your care.
Right. So, oh gosh, I say this all the time too because people do people tell me. I had somebody just recently. I hadn't talked to her in a while, and she was like, "I'm so sorry, I haven't reached out. I feel like an awful friend, and I just didn't know what to say, and I didn't know what to do." Well, the reality is, we don't. As somebody who's grieving, you don't need somebody to come and say all the right things. To be
No.
quite honest, most things that people say are all the wrong things. I
Terrible
mean,
stuff that come out of
all
people's
the
mouth.
wrong things. Oh my gosh. People were telling me he had been gone a week, and I had people telling me, "You're gonna find somebody new." And I'm like, "You don't say that to somebody who lost a child or a parent." Like,
Yeah.
such a weird comment to make. But don't say that. But I think that just knowing the person that's grieving just needs somebody to be there.
Mhm.
I don't necessarily need somebody to sit and chat with me and talk to me. I just need you to sit there with me and just be there with me. If I need to cry my eyes out, just let me and just hug me. You don't even have to speak. I just
Mhm.
need to know you're there. And I
Right.
need to know that you're going to be that I can call you and that I can count on you. And I
Mhm.
also, one of the best things that anybody could ever do, I know that through all of my stuff, my daughters really showed up for me. And, they'd show up, they'd start cleaning the house, they'd start doing random things that I just physically I just couldn't get myself to do things. And I think that's such a huge help. If you have a friend or if you are a friend that wants to just show up, mow the lawn, show up and do the laundry, take the kids to school, whatever that might look like, depending on,
Mhm.
the situation. But those things are such a huge help, just knowing that that person doesn't have to ask.
Yeah. Well, I had someone like, I'm gonna do you like coffee? I'm like, I love coffee. How about I bring a cup before church? I'm like, okay. What kind do you like? I'm like, I don't know, all of it. And they're like, how about a mocha? Oh, that sounds good. Don't make people make decisions.
There's too many decisions. Yes, we have to make so many decisions. So the less decisions we have to make, the better. So just make them for us. We'll probably just be like, yeah, whatever. We don't care. I don't care. I don't care. Just do it.
Like, oh, but here's one thing my sister said is that, maybe less pasta when you
Oh
bring
my
food.
gosh. Don't bring us food. We don't eat. One of the best, I had two really amazing things that people brought me. They brought me DoorDash gift cards.
My sister's been loving that. That's the best idea ever.
That has been the best because I was able to order food when I actually felt like I could eat.
Yeah.
And the other thing was protein shakes, because on those moments where I could not eat, my aunt actually brought me protein shakes, and she said that helped her when she lost her daughter. And I thought, oh my gosh, that was a game changer.
Yeah,
because physically eat, I just slammed a protein shake if I felt weak.
Yeah, absolutely. What was the brand? Because we all know some protein shakes taste like poo.
She sent me Premier protein shakes.
Okay.
They're pretty good.
Yeah, and I think they have those at Costco, if I had to remember right.
Fairlife are good ones too.
So, next would be, how would you love your story to impact people in the world?
Oh gosh, if there is anything I have learned from this situation is people in this, especially in our world now, are afraid of marriage. My husband was. He had two really awful relationships that totally took him for everything he had, and he had to restart a couple different times in his life. So when we got together, we were amazing. We didn't fight. We got along. We were great. And but he was scared. And because of his fear, it made it so that I wasn't protected when he passed. And so he was more afraid. And I've talked to a few people about this that are not legally married also. And this is their fear. Their fear is, what if that person cheats on me or hurts me or leaves me, and then they take all of what I've got, and then I'm screwed. But then I'm like, but what if you die? And they're like, well, I want her to have everything. And I'm like, all right, there's the problem. So if there's anything that I hope helps with my story, is that people go and just get everything in writing. It's so important, whether that's you put together a will and you are protecting the person that you love, because the best thing you can do for the person you love is protect them. And if you're afraid and you really do want to get married, but you're afraid of that, do a prenup, because that's the only protection. I mean,
can't you do a prenup anyway? Like, if you decide to leave me, you get nothing. But if I die and I loved you, you get everything.
Yes, exactly. And that would have protected me. Unfortunately, he didn't do that, and he didn't have anything in place. Everything he had put together was a year and a half before him and I ever even met, and he just never updated it. So if you already have something in place, go update it. Make sure that everything is updated, because we can't guarantee tomorrow as much as we want to. My husband thought he was invincible, and he was just not. So,
well, and we never want to talk about death. It's another problem with our society. We don't want to talk about death. We don't want to talk to people who have experienced death in their lives. We need to change the U.S. culture. I don't know if it's like that in the rest of the world, but the U.S. is screwed up in so many levels. So maybe we can just be better.
But I agree. People are afraid to talk about it. It makes them uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be a salvation thing. They're not sure what's going to happen afterwards, or they're afraid of how it's going to happen, right? We can't control. We all would just like to wait till we're 100 years old and not wake up. That would be the easiest, right? No pain. You don't even realize it, but whatever. But yeah, and I think it would be a great way to be able to, to have your end of life stuff put in order. And I think a lot of people are just like, oh, I don't do it because it's so expensive. That's why I put it off, right? I am married, but I think this too, is that things will go into probate. That is messy and long.
That is awful. And you know what? It is actually not that expensive to do it. So you could easily go through Legal Shield
Okay.
and put together, you can do a 1 month membership to Legal Shield. I think it's less than $100. Do your will through them, cancel your subscription, and you've got a will.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Like, it is really not that much. I think people end up overcomplicating it because they hear about so many other things. There are other things that are a lot more complicated. If you're doing a trust,
Mm-hmm.
things like that, they're a lot more expensive. But if you are just needing a simple will, you can even download something off the internet, put it in writing, go get it notarized, just have something in writing so that you can protect your loved
That's
ones.
true. I'm sure AI could even help everybody too. But remember, AI is
Exactly.
not lawyers, so don't sit there and try to say, well, now he's trying to give us legal advice.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever. So, one final question. Who do you believe your story is meant to help?
Gosh, I believe it's meant to help anyone and anyone it can. Um, I think that there's just a lot of couples in this world now that just don't have anything in order, and they're perfectly content, people that have been together for 20, 30 years,
Mm-hmm.
not legally married. They love the person so much, and they would never want any harm to them, but
Mm-hmm.
they're not protecting him. They I never felt that having that piece of paper changed anything. We loved each other the same, whether there was a legal document or not, but that
Mm-hmm.
legal document goes a long way.
Well, yeah, especially when it comes to what happens to all the things. And we don't, and that's the thing too, is people are just like, you know, I don't need, how does it go? Like the prenup, or we were talking about the will, or legal protection is meant to protect against like for example, a legal document when it comes to business arrangement, right? Why do we do contracts? Not because we think anything's going to happen. It's just that it gives us a layer of protection should something happen.
Absolutely. Well, in my case, for the last year, I have literally woken up every morning with anxiety because somebody else had power over me.
Mm-hmm.
And I constantly thought, oh my gosh, what if I get a notice on my door that I need to vacate my house in 3 days? And they could have done that at any given moment. And that was a really scary feeling because, this is my home. This is where we built a life together. And there was a lot on the line, honestly. And it was really scary.
Yeah. So I would love to finish with this last question before we wrap up. What would you say to someone listening right now who may be walking through a difficult season and wondering if their story still matters?
It absolutely matters. Everybody's story is different. Everybody has something, and your story is important. Your grief is important, and it's okay to feel the feelings. It's okay. However you're feeling, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's so important to understand is I think I watch so many people ask, well, shouldn't I be further along by now? And in another one I hear a lot of people say is, should I take my wedding ring off?
Mm-hmm.
Should I move his stuff? Should I take his stuff put his clothes away? Should I donate stuff? Well, you do it when you're ready, and you're gonna know when you're ready. I think that's one of the things is I lost his family came in early on, only a few months in, and took every bit of his clothes out of my closet. And they took all of it. And I lost that goodbye because that's a goodbye that most of us get the opportunity to decide when we're ready for that. And I lost that goodbye. And one of the things that I was able to do was I finally just recently, and it's been over a year, I went into the medicine cabinet and I cleaned out all of his medicines and vitamins and such and did all of that. And it was hard. It took me 4 days just to go through one cabinet because I'd start doing it. And then I'm like, maybe I shouldn't do this. I even kept a few things in there because I need to see his name on something. It's weird, but
Mm-hmm.
do it how you feel. Whatever you feel is right, that's what's right. Nobody can tell you Time to move on. Nobody can tell you you should or shouldn't get rid of his stuff. That's a choice you get to make.
Sure, sure. Well, and I think sometimes we also want to make sure we don't do stuff hastily either.
Yes, because that you'll regret.
I'm just going to do it to move on. Those of us who are super high driven personalities, might be like, I'm just going to just sell the house and get rid of all the things. And then what you're doing is you're jumping over the grief. Like, screw it, I'm just going to go.
Exactly. That is exactly it.
And the problem is when you get to the other side, you're going to be like, feeling bad that you got rid of everything and now you don't have anything to process.
Yes, that's exactly it. I've seen that time and time again, and people they just want to like fly through it because they don't want to feel the feelings. They don't want to feel this. They don't want the hurt. None of us want the hurt. It sucks. But if you don't feel it now, you're gonna feel it later.
Yeah. Well,
you're just prolonging it.
Exactly. Well, there's actually, I'll bring it up and then we'll close up. But this here, I don't know if anybody can see it. It's a homeopathic. And now, obviously, go see your chiropractor, naturopathic physician, all the things. I'm not a doctor. I just play one on TV. It's actually helps lung and large intestine process emotions.
Oh, interesting.
So spray it on the inside of your mouth. And my chiropractor goes straight on the inside of your mouth every time you feel sad. And it helps your body process through the correct part of your body so it doesn't get stuck.
That's interesting.
So it's pretty neat. And so, it's not meaning like you spray it so you don't feel. You're not saying spray it so that goes away. You spray it so it helps your body process the set of emotions so you're not stuck. So there's so many ways homeopathically that we can support our bodies to help us through things properly. So
I do the oils.
Yeah.
I have tried absolutely everything. I do oils. I do baths often just to relax. I do the Epsom salt and energy work and massages and anything and everything. I do talk therapy and I do EMDR therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I got all the things because at this point I'm just really leaning into the self-care for myself.
Well, and it just means that it doesn't mean, to me, it almost kind of like you're allowing yourself, your body and your emotions to move forward. It doesn't mean you're moving faster. It's just, you mean you're moving forward. And the process of moving forward means that, and I don't know, it's like, I've never lost, a child never lost a husband. So from what I understand, it never goes away. You're just able to, like I had said kind of at the beginning, I don't even remember if we were on the air, you live with joy and grief at the same time.
Literally.
And there's a way. God is good and he is always sovereign and he's amazing in every way. But it doesn't mean that grief cannot coexist at the same time.
It absolutely does. There's moments that certain things will happen and I get really sad and then I giggle about it because I'm like, oh my gosh, that was such a good memory. That was such a good time with him. And so it's weird. It's a weird balance. And people from the outside kind of tend to look at you and think, oh my gosh, you're doing so good. You're getting through this so well. And you're like, yeah. Little do you know, I just am really good at being on a front sometimes.
Yeah, so be brave. Right. What to do? I mean, it's almost like they expect everybody to walk around with zombies and tears all the time.
Well, and that's exactly it. I used to joke with my husband back. He used to make comments. He'd be like, why are you so cranky? And I'm like, do you want me to walk around with a smile on my face all day long? Like, I mean, I could try, but I can't guarantee it.
Over.
But it's like the opposite. Everybody's like, oh, you're so happy. And I'm like, I'm not going to walk around with a frown on my face all day long either.
Yeah. I mean, there'll be moments where you're probably going to go buy a gallon of milk at the store and all of a sudden you start crying in there because you remember a memory that he loved milk too. You would stir it and all the things. You're like,
I'll tell you one more story before we get off. I had a weird moment. I walked into the grocery store and I went straight to the produce aisle. And all of a sudden I'm looking for these cherries that he loved. And I'm like, I'm doing everything I possibly can not to fully break down in the grocery store. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get out of here. But I needed to get coffee. and if you know me, I have to have my coffee. So I couldn't leave the store without the coffee. So and it was Girl Scout cookie time. Okay. So I'm walking to the, to the self-checkout because I don't want to even talk to a cashier. And I'm trying to hold back these tears and I'm rushing through the register. And as I'm walking out, I have all these Girl Scouts rushing me. And I'm like, full force, just keep my eyes straight. I already bought from you guys. I already bought from you guys. And I'm like rushing to the car because I'm like, don't break down. Like, I don't want anybody to see I'm like breaking down at this point. And once I got in my car, I was able to like fully release all of these tears. But it was like I could not get out of that grocery store fast enough.
Well, and this is where also a little, not even just DoorDash gift cards, but also Instacart would probably be really helpful for people who are grieving. Like, please don't make me go in public.
It's the little things you don't even realize are going to affect you that they do.
Yeah. Well, this has been a really enjoyable conversation, even though, and that's what I want people to understand is that there's got to be a way that we can talk about grief and it be joy and grief at the same time, be able to smile, be able to laugh, because that's what our loved ones would want us to do anyway. They don't want us to sit around and wear black all the time and be sad and they'd be like, come on, Tabitha, get up. Come on, okay, get up.
No, he would be kicking my butt if I was just laying around doing nothing all day long.
Yeah. So he was the one that motivated you to put all the sheets in the thing so you wouldn't get back. Yeah. I would have probably just found the blanket somewhere and laid on the bed anyway, because it's it's kind of like those who say, freeze your credit cards and put them in water. You know what unfreezes credit cards in water? Hot water.
Very true.
Anyway, but don't come to me for grief advice. I'll give you all the tricks on how to avoid it all. Anyway, well, this has been fun. I appreciate you for sharing the story with us today. And we have to remember that conversations like this is what helps us remember that healing is possible, that each of us has a calling on our lives, even when sometimes that calling comes from something tragic. And I thank you all for being with us today on Healed Whole Called. Till next time.
Bye. Thank you.